ఓకే. అయిపోయింది. అదే నా మొత్తం పెట్టి తీసుకెట్లేదు 4-6 పడ్డది కదా 6-4 పెద్దల్లి
सोनू बटल दिनावे ఛార్జింగ్ పెట్టుకోలే కదా సెల్ సోను సెల్ ఛార్జింగ్ పెట్టుకోండి నా సెల్ ఛార్జింగ్ వీడు ఇస్తున్నాడు నీకు కరెంట్ పోయే ప్రమాదం
Hello guys, very good evening. So welcome to Zorium's second webinar on blockchain evaluation framework for enterprises. So we'll wait for another 2 to 3 minutes and we'll start. So meanwhile, I request everyone to mute yourself and you can use chat if you have any questions. And at the end of the webinar, I'll be taking Q&A based on the questions asked in chat. Okay, thank you. So meanwhile, I have a question for the people who joined already. So how many of you participated in my last webinar? You can use chat. Okay. Okay, Syed. So thanks for joining. Hope you'll have good information and insights. Hi, King Shuk. Nice to have you here. Hi, Prasad. Hi. Hi, Satish. So we'll wait for another 1 minute and we'll start. Okay. Oh, hi, Charan.
Man, sound come out. Sound come out.
No, no, not yet. We'll start in another 1 minute. Waiting for others to join. So actually, we did this same webinar yesterday with MSME, Ministry of MSME, and we had around 75 business leaders across India, and it was pretty good response. And we could accommodate only 100, and we got more than 100 registrations. So for the other people, we are doing this again. And we should be thankful to Blockchain India. So Blockchain India is a community partner for this particular webinar, and even the coming webinars will be having them as a community partner. Hi Nitin, hi. Yeah, I remember you joined for the last one. Yes, so this is different one. Okay. No, I'm talking about webinar which I did yesterday. Okay, not the other one which we did 10 days back. Okay. Hi Ramesh. Hi Prasad. Okay, so yeah, it's time, I think. Meanwhile, others might join and we'll start. Okay, okay. Yeah, same here, same feeling here. Okay, so coming to our presentation today, like we'll be discussing a blockchain evaluation framework for enterprises. And if you remember, at least some of you who might have joined our last webinar, it is demystifying blockchain, a 9-step non-technical introduction. Okay. So in last webinar, we gave an elaborate 9-step introduction to blockchain. And now as a series, the next presentation is blockchain evaluation framework for enterprises. Okay. And this 9-step approach will help business leaders to decide usability of blockchain for a given business scenario. And of course, if you are students, like probably tech students or probably business students, there are some MBA students as well who registered themselves. So you will be able to get a picture of how technology and business go hand by hand. Okay, how a value proposition is seen by business leaders when they evaluate a technology. Okay. So let's get started. And for few people who joined for the first time to this webinar series, so I'm Aravind Borganti. So I'm with Zorium Labs, Blockchain Labs, as a vice president. And I head a product of Zorium, which is Asli Stamp. And that is my LinkedIn link. Okay. And coming to Zorium, Zorium is ISO 27001 2013 company. And we build enterprise blockchain applications in verification as a service and supply chain domains. And of course, apart from those two products or product lines, we do undertake blockchain as a service, projects as well. Okay, so for a given use case. Now let's look at the presentation outline and today's agenda. So we'll go in 8-point agenda. First, we'll have a brief introduction to blockchain. So,
today agenda different ga undi ga.
So we'll have a very brief introduction to blockchain in a couple of slides. And then we'll see blockchain value framework, where we'll discuss what are those value propositions business leaders are looking at. Okay. And what are the benefits, intended benefits industry wise. And then we'll see a decision map for usability of blockchain. Now imagine you want to implement blockchain. So what are those aspects or what are those questions, fundamental questions, which you need to ask yourself for deciding the usability of blockchain. And then we'll discuss 3 classical categories of blockchain for enterprises. So there are 3 categories widely used in blockchain based on the business scenario. And of course, without discussing these classical categories, evaluating blockchain for a business scenario will be incomplete. So that is why I'll be touching on that as well. And then we'll go through a 9-step approach to evaluate blockchain and strategy, like coming up with a blockchain adoption strategy or evaluation. I mean, evaluation and strategy go hand by hand. Okay, we can't separate them. So we'll discuss on both the lines. And then we'll have like example use cases to look at, so that we'll be able to apply the 9-step approach to that scenario. Okay, and then we'll have a Q&A. And of course, we scheduled it till 6, and sometimes the Q&A might go beyond that. So probably by 6:15, we should be able to finish this off. Okay. Now, why did we choose this? This theme for this for our second webinar, because see, blockchain is a technology, and when a new technology comes up, understanding the usability itself is very critical for adopting that. And during a recent a Cognizant report 2017, around 56% of business leaders said that understanding blockchain use cases was a top internal barrier to adoption. And of course, recent World Economic Forum report also says like business leaders are still evaluating blockchain and trying to figure out what exactly the benefits are and how they can accommodate blockchain into their business value chain. So we thought, yes, this is an apt topic to discuss, so that we can enable some business leaders like you, or business professionals like you, so that you will be having enough exposure and approach to do that. And if you look at the blockchain adoption curve, it is in growth stage. And why should you consider blockchain? At the end of the day, of course, it is in growth stage, and it is disrupting almost all industries one way or other. So 2015 is the year like exploration and investments, early investments happened. And then in 2016-17, early adoption happened. And now it's time for growth. So when growth cycle comes up for a typical technology, that is when probably majority of the companies will start looking at evaluating blockchain and start aligning their processes, so that they will be able to deploy blockchain. Okay, so it's right time. Like we are at right time to explore, evaluate, and do some POCs probably. Okay, so that you won't miss the you won't miss the opportunities. Okay, and you won't miss the benefits of blockchain. And of course, by 2025, or 23 to 25, so different report says different numbers, but Gartner report says by 2023, blockchain will be able to create $3.1 trillion of value across industries. And of course, numbers are like they look super good. Okay, but again, at the end of the day, how blockchain penetrates into the ecosystem is still being figured out. Okay, so let's look at what is blockchain. And I think I discussed a couple of slides here in our last webinar, but I'm repeating it for the who joined for the first time. See, essentially, blockchain is Internet of money or value. Okay, so when I say money, don't just assume the fiat currency or cash which we use. I'm here referring to a broad definition of money, which is like stocks, bonds, gold, silver, flyer miles, reward points, probably some invoices. See, any data which has some value can be transferred on blockchain in a trustworthy way. And just as today's internet, which is predominantly lets us freely share information, blockchain lets us freely share value without any intermediaries. Okay, so anyways, we'll understand what is this intermediary and what exactly. So you might get a doubt. Even today, I'm doing a net banking, a transaction with some other person, right? So when you are doing a transaction with some other person, you are of course relying on a trusted third party called bank. But with blockchain, you can disintermediate banks. And blockchain as a technology itself will enable peer-to-peer transactions without any trusted third party. Then you might get a doubt. Who will validate the transactions, the network, the protocol? So for the first time, blockchain is bringing disintermediation of trusted third parties, so that all validation of transactions will be done by a network which is agreed on consensus. Okay, and creating a blockchain is like creating a mini economy. And of course, most of you might have got introduced to blockchain via Bitcoin or some cryptocurrencies, but see, blockchain is beyond cryptocurrencies. Cryptocurrency is just one application of blockchain. Okay, there are fintech and non-fintech applications of blockchain. So I'll be discussing blockchain in a in a broader way rather than constraining myself to discuss in some currency terms. So blockchain is financial internet or internet of money or internet of value. Like people can use it as per their industry. Now let's have a brief understanding of the blockchain building blocks. Now let's take businesses. The basic operation of every business is transaction. And what is a transaction? Transaction is exchange of value. So as I said, blockchain is internet of value. Of course, value exchange, value, internet of value. Whenever there is internet, of course, there should be some transaction or exchange of value. And that is why transaction becomes one of the basic element of building block of blockchain. And ledger. So now imagine there are two businesses. Okay. Probably there is one manufacturer and there is one distributor. And now manufacturer wants to ship a product, a package of products which he manufactured to a distributor. Now it is a business transaction. And now when this business transaction happens, of course, fundamentally, there is a transaction which will be getting into records onto a ledger. And this ledger is like a accounting ledger within the ERP of each player. Okay. Now there is a PO raised, there is a shipping bill raised, and goods are shipped. Then there is acknowledgement raised. Then invoice is settled. Then the bank transfer happens. So all these are multiple transactions which are happening as per a contract or agreement. So every transaction in a business is backed by some contract or agreement. It may not be a on paper agreement. Okay. It may be a mutual understanding on what you are ordering and what you are going to get. What is the value of exchange? What is the exchange of value which will happen? But here comes one biggest challenge. Today, every organization is maintaining the transactions which it is doing with multiple stakeholders. Okay. Now there comes some scenarios where multiple stakeholders are involved in the state change of that particular data. So a single item. So let's take a supply chain, which is most widely adopted. It adopted blockchain more than any other field. Why? Because let's imagine there is one product which is moving from a manufacturer to distributor to wholesaler to retailer, and it is the same product whose ownership is getting changed step by step multiple times. Now today, a manufacturer beyond distributor network will not be able to track or trace where these products went. And that is why it becomes very tough for recalls, or in case of expiries, it is a hectic coordination process between retailers. Then they communicate back to wholesalers again they communicate back with distributors. Okay, and then it reaches to manufacturers. So why is this happening? Now all the business details between manufacturer and distributor are between them only. Okay, and the copy of those particular transactions are in their individual organizational ERP system. So manufacturer maintains one ledger of the transactions. It does. Then distributor maintains another ledger of the transactions, which it does with wholesalers on one side and manufacturer on other side. And same with wholesaler, same with retailer. Now what's happening is data is becoming in silos. And that is why there is a gap sometimes there is a gap with respect to transparency across the network value chain. Okay. So that is when the benefit of distributed ledger comes in. And I think if you take supply chain as an example, because I touched upon that, now supply chain is something where multiple stakeholders are involved, and multiple stakeholders are actually having same copies of transactions which they did. So a transaction is getting replicated on two different systems. And because these data is controlled by admins of individual organizations, if there is some discrepancy or if there is some data which is to be reconciled for settlement, they need to rely on paperwork. And lot of coordination happens between financial departments, lot of paperwork, and operational efficiency goes down, because every business transaction between all these stakeholders should go through a verification of the contracts, agreements, the terms and conditions, and then payment terms are decided, and then it is done. So all these things are happening in silos. But blockchain is a distributed ledger, which is like a shared data on a peer-to-peer network, so that it is visible to all the stakeholders. And let me elaborate with a pictorial representation. If you take the present ledger copy, each organization maintains its own copy of data. Okay. And based on the contracts and agreements, that they validate the they physically check and validate the transactions, and then settlements are done. Okay. Now blockchain supports smart contracts, and this smart contract is nothing but automation of transactions as per predefined contracts. Now blockchain is one to codify the business logic into smart contracts so that they can reduce coordination times, paperwork, etc. Okay. And upon consensus of all stakeholders involved in that particular transaction, only a smart contract gets executed. Okay. And all this execution process is a script. So no human intervention to validate or verify. All rules and regulations or all primary checks are codified. So if you take a blockchain, here is a centralized ledger, which is controlled by the admin of that particular organization. And then comes probably, let's imagine this is one player, all the players like manufacturer, then supplier, okay, and supplier, other supplier, and then you have multiple wholesalers or distributors connected. So each one is maintaining their own copy. There is no single source of truth upon which everyone can rely. Okay. Now, if you take distributed ledger, what happens is all data is in sync. Okay. The same ledger copy is maintained across all the stakeholders. And only authorized, accessible will be able to see the data. And all this data is stored in a format called hashing, a cryptographic technique. So that even though the data is stored across, the ledger copy is across all the nodes, it is not stored as data itself. It will be stored in hash form. And hash is like a 128 bit. Okay, a 128 bit hexadecimal number. So every transaction is converted to a hexadecimal number, and all hexadecimals are chained together, hash pointers. So I won't get into much technical details, but all I want to tell you is data, even though it gets replicated as a distributed ledger across the nodes, it is not the data which is getting replicated, but it is digital footprint of that data which gets replicated. And only stakeholders who are authorized to see only can see the data actually. And each node will execute the smart contract to verify all transactions happening across the network. And now imagine if this is a centralized server, I can hack this one single central server and probably I can change the data. But imagine hacking a distributed ledger, which is copied across all the nodes. So if someone were to attack a blockchain, then they need to attack all the nodes in the network. Then only they will be able to modify data. If they try to hack one system and they modified some data, then the protocol will take care that the changes get rejected. Why? Any change reflected should be validated by all the peers in the network. And automatically, if some change happens, it is automatically rejected. So that is how consensus of all the stakeholders will decide if a transaction is valid or not. So this is what brings blockchain, data on blockchain a unique ability. What is that? Immutability. Unless until 51% of all the network players are trustworthy, no one can manipulate the data on blockchain. And of course, because the same single source of truth is available across the nodes, everyone trusts it. So here are some of the benefits. Blockchain enables transactions in a trustless system through transparency. So every transaction will be verified, validated by a smart contract. And of course, you need not blindly believe the other person or trust the other organization. Okay. You can just do a business, initiate a transaction, and if the conditions in that smart contract are matched, then only a transaction will happen. Okay. So even financial transactions also can be automated using smart contracts when the conditions are met. So probably now imagine there is a manufacturer who shipped some package, and each package might have some QR code or barcode. Okay. And when it is scanned by the buyer, okay, then blockchain can trigger the smart contract to automate the process of transferring amount based on terms and conditions. Okay. So now imagine some supply chains have 30 days or 45 days or 15 days timelines to transfer the funds. Okay. So all those conditions can be codified. So what the benefit of distributed ledger is? One, it is distributed ledger. It is digital in nature, and there is no need of a acknowledgement document again being mailed. Okay. And then that being passed to financial department, and then it gets into a queue for settlement. And when it is settled, then there will be a mail again. So all this process can be avoided. Reconciliation of data between departments and between organizations can be automated. So it is updated near real time, and all transactions are time stamped and will be getting into blockchain in a chronological order. And as I already previously mentioned, every transaction is cryptographically sealed, so that even if some data gets manipulated from the front end, the backend blockchain protocol will be able to verify the hash pointer, and it can validate the change, verify the changes. Sixth, irreversible and auditable. So once its transaction enters onto blockchain, that's it. No one can modify it. Okay. After validation and consensus by all the stakeholders, then only a transaction gets onto the distributed ledger, and then it is irreversible. And of course, auditable. So auditing process becomes very easy because every data, everything is chronologically time-stamped in order and operates trustless, and you can rely, you need not, you can rely on fewer third parties for trust purpose. Now let's look at the value framework. If you take blockchain, there are three key dimensions for which almost all industry players across the globe are looking at. One is improving profitability and quality. Second, increasing transparency among parties. Third, reinventing products and processes. Now let's look at improving profitability and quality. Now, automation. First, a self-validating network plus smart contracts enable auto execution of business rules. See, this itself, take any manufacturing sector or any supply chain or any industry. Okay, let's take any industry. Business rules is something which are pretty much dynamic, and everyone has their own regulatory processes, compliance processes, okay, step-by-step verification process to authorize things. Okay, and this is where blockchain helps a lot for multiple organizations to deploy a blockchain, and they can define all the rules as a code on smart contracts, and every transaction can become seamless. And even if something goes wrong, imagine something went wrong, then because those transactions, nothing can go wrong, but even if something goes out of system, because sometimes it's not just digital assets, but sometimes physical assets are also linked to blockchain world. So of course, even if there are some discrepancies, because the data is a shared ledger across stakeholders, it is verifiable. I'll give you a simple example here. There are some cases, especially in food supply chain, okay, where a food processing unit is supposed to ship to retail stores sometimes on a specific timelines. Okay, especially let's take one example in New York. New York retail stores actually open early, okay, because there is a parking issue in New York all the time, and that is why all inward of goods things happen early morning. And sometimes if the logistics player is unable to deliver, okay, of course there will be a cut, there will be a penalty. And even if he doesn't maintain some proper temperature, etc., even there is a penalty sometimes and all. Now imagine a manufacturer says, hey, I have see, now the noting of data of particular logistics player moving from there, it happens on a ERP system of manufacturer, and receiving time happens on the ERP system of retailer, which is completely different. And logistics player is someone who just moves here and there. And now the biggest challenge is, if manufacturer says, hey, I have shipped it early only, okay, it is problem of logistics player. And there are many cases where the retailer blames like, hey, I received it late, and logistics player says, I delivered it in time. Now there is a lot of coordination which happens, which is not getting onto the system. Now having multiple nodes with automatic reconciliation of data, if now imagine there is a latitude, longitude, and the logistics player went okay on that particular timestamp, and that particular transaction of goods moving from manufacturer to logistics gets stored on distributed ledger as a transaction, and that is automatically reconciled with retailer also. So retailer can view the data, and because data is on blockchain, manufacturer alone can't mess with data. Manufacturer or food processing unit can't change the data or edit the data. Okay, once on blockchain, it is there. And a data from IoT sensor every 15 minutes or half an hour probably can be also stored on a blockchain as a transaction. And if there is some discrepancy or some temperature differences, then a smart contract will automatically apply the penalty as per business rules, which is defined in the contract, and it will process the transaction. So when multiple stakeholders are involving, of course, there is a trust gap sometimes. And there is, I mean, there is not, it's not just only trust, but there is a scope for improving more transparency so that business happens in a seamless way. And because of that, control is achieved, full traceability is achieved, security is achieved, speed, efficiency is improved, and evidence tampering can be easily detectable. And auditability, ownership, compliance, payments, standardization can happen, track and trace, process automation, data management, data security, reconciliation of data. So these are the value drivers for business leaders to look at improving profitability and quality. And let me tell you, blockchain is a collaborative effort. Unless until all stakeholders come together and decide, hey, let's put these processes onto blockchain, because these are common for all of us, and having a distributed ledger of that will help us to make our coordination, to do our business in a seamless way. And a manufacturer can't give a ERP system to distributor or wholesaler to retailer, right? See, he can't create a huge centralized system which gives access to everyone. No single player can do such standardization effort. And that is when blockchain comes into the picture. And the second value chain, second dimension is increasing transparency among parties. Because it is distributed ledger, no single entity owns the data. And consensus applies to every validation of transaction. So that is how the shared access with no central point of failure enables more transparency. Next, holistic view. Because there is a single source of truth, all stakeholders see the same information to which they have access. So this enables a secured data sharing, a transparent way of business environment, a trustworthy way to do the business, and then resiliency. See, sometimes because of these discrepancies, like the system becomes broken. See, we don't know what is happening across, and especially banking system. Just imagine banking system today. There are lots of bad loans. The credit system itself is like being questioned. And if you take the recession in 2008, one of the biggest challenge was the credit system. I mean, the credit system, the way credit of an individual is being evaluated and loans being given itself is broken. And at that time, a single person, by showing his credit worthiness, used to get loan from multiple banks, because there is no coordination between all the banks. Only after 2008 and 9, probably the standardization, the interbank collaboration happened, and a central, what is like we have in India, CIBIL score, right? Which checks the credit worthiness of a individual, like how much loan can be given and all. Okay. So resiliency, like lot of systems are broken just because multiple stakeholders don't have a common platform to collaborate or take decisions. And today in world of globalization, let's take COVID scenario. All supply chains are broken and impacted very badly, because there's a lot of human intervention, lot of multiple stakeholders involved. Like let's take customs, air cargo or shipment cargo, and customs, everything should pass through customs, right? And there is a checks. Yes, of course, checks should be there, but unless until I have a a freight forwarder there, I don't know the status of my shipment in customs, because customs is a like closed system. So I don't unless until a freight forwarder goes and follows there, he don't get the status of the shipment. And air cargo also, they have their own system. Airlines, they have their own system. Okay. So multiple stakeholders have multiple systems and they are capturing the data, but data is in silos. So blockchain can bring resilience. So resilient supply chains are possible with blockchain. Now, the third important dimension is reinventing products and processes. A new disruptive products lines or new processes are possible with blockchain. Let's take one simple example. A decentralized autonomous organizations are possible with blockchain. A transparent predefined rules mean new ventures may be created and providing autonomous products or services. Okay. One of the best example is decentralized marketplaces. If you take decentralized marketplaces today, let's take one example like marketplaces by government. Now imagine government wants to procure some X goods from multiple organizations. Okay, now there is a bidding process which happens, and that happens on a centralized system. And of course, every stakeholder should believe that government is doing a fair job and it is actually allowing fair prices. I mean, organizations which give fair prices to do business with them. We don't know because it is happening on a centralized system. Now imagine blockchain. I mean, blockchain helps here for a decentralized marketplace. So even government insiders or government admins are probably, I mean, you need not rely on a, okay, in a decentralized marketplace, multiple stakeholders like buyers and sellers can enroll themselves and they can put product catalogs and they can define their they can define all their terms and conditions in a smart contract. And of course, people can search for specific contracts, and if they match with, if it matches with their requirement, automatically the smart contract will execute. And of course, data visibility can be controlled. Okay, it's not like everyone is able to see. So there is one concept in blockchain called zero proof knowledge. Without revealing the data, I can verify the data. Now imagine I can apply zero proof knowledge for pricing category. Let's take one organization gave X price, other organization gave Y, Z. Okay, now I have A to Z different prices. So without actually revealing the prices, with zero proof knowledge, we can do some mathematical operation that, hey, government considered this price as low. Is it low of all the prices which are mentioned? If yes, then the smart contract gets executed and you can believe that. And these kinds of unique, I mean, reinventing processes or reinventing products is possible. And enhanced identity. Now imagine there are, see, yesterday we had a interaction with MSME field. There are lakhs of micro and small enterprises who do business on a day-to-day basis. And when you are doing business with some unknown, you just can't rely on the regulatory documents, permission documents. Okay, you need to have some trustworthy information on what they do. Okay, or what is their business history. Okay, now if you want to do a business, will you call and say, hey, can you share your account statement and accounts? I want to review all your data and I will trust you. No, you can't say that. Now, with these kinds of decentralized platforms, imagine all MSME organizations can onboard themselves on a decentralized platform. Okay, and they can do all the businesses. And all the review system also can be made trustworthy. Okay, because is it a review which is duplicated by the same organization on some system, or every node, I mean, every MSME will have their own identity, and before a review of a organization is getting into the system, you can validate, verify them. Okay, blockchain gives a public key, private key for each node or each stakeholder. So enhanced identity is very important. And over a period of time, this review system on a decentralized marketplace will enable people or businesses to do business with trustworthiness. And then comes tokenization and digital assets. So like the blockchain has become so huge and so diverse that it takes a lot of time for what to say, like it has multiple use cases, multiple features, and still industries across the globe are figuring it out. Okay, they are coming with easy frameworks. And this effort is also like this part of blockchain value framework, I should attribute like World Economic Forum is doing a great job in creating frameworks for organizations to evaluate blockchain. So authentication, identity management, marketplace creation, new or enhanced products and services, and new and expanded partnerships. Today, sometimes just because you don't know someone, it is not that you can't trust them, right? And in this world of globalization, some organization in India is doing business with some organization in Korea for the first time, and we never know what they are and how do we trust them. So future is not like Alibaba or Amazon acting as a intermediary player, okay, who is doing all verification check and all. Blockchain as a decentralized system will emerge, and the network itself will take care of everything. And tomorrow a business can do business with other business organization without relying on any intermediary player, just based on the rules and regulations, trust, I mean all smart contracts, everything which are codified. And again, there are some pitfalls, there are some loopholes. See, now imagine, I'll just give you a simple example. Once data enters onto blockchain, it is superb. But what if a wrong data enters into the system? Okay, so now imagine there is a product with a QR code, reach it to retailer. So you should not give the retailer to enter some number for them to enter the data onto blockchain. You should remove human intervention, like scan the QR, that's it. The acknowledgement copy goes outright and the settlement process happens. So of course, for implementing blockchain, some human intervention should be removed and some conditions should be written in smart contract to, to filter some manipulations at the point of entry itself. So few more things are to be in place, but still digital assets like documents, land records, these kinds of things are okay. Like they can be outrightly implemented on blockchain, but there are few use cases which has some little loopholes, and industries are figuring out how to overcome them. And if you look at the advantages, top advantages per industry, full traceability of any information on the blockchain, ability to ensure data has not been tampered with, distributed nature of the technology. I mean, these are the intended benefits. Smart contracts and automation, increased speed and efficiency, increased security, a holistic view with transparency for all appropriate parties, new business products or service. Now, if these 8 are the intended benefits, each industry has their own priorities to look at blockchain. So I think, let me move this. Now let's look at this. Let's take automotive industry. So increased security is one of their primary way of you looking at blockchain. See, because blockchain evaluation depends on the intended benefits they get, but intended benefits are different for different industries. So you need to prioritize based on your business field. So if you take full traceability of any information, automotive industry gives 7th priority. But smart contracts and automation, it gives second priority. Let's take banking. The fundamental thing which banking expects from blockchain is ability to ensure that data has not been tampered with. See, let's take Punjab National Bank recently. They gave around like thousands of crores of money to multiple accounts, and probably the managers or the admins are involved in that, and somehow the data got messed up or not became apparent or transparent or visible. Of course, no one knows what happened later. Or even today we don't believe like banks, or we don't believe even big organizations, because I mean tampering is happening at every level because of centralized nature of the systems. And let's take Ripple. So if you are aware, Ripple network. Ripple is a blockchain network of 40 international banks. And these 40 international banks facilitate billions of dollars of transactions every year. And they rely on Master, Visa card, MasterCard, okay, SWIFT. These are all interbank clearance agencies. They don't do retail banking. Okay, they don't open any bank accounts. I mean, they don't facilitate bank accounts. But these are 40 international banks who came together and decided, why should we lose transaction fee to some intermediary clearance agencies? Why don't we deploy a distributed ledger so that we ourselves will facilitate interbank transactions? So now when these kinds of disintermediation happens with blockchain, hello, any question? Can you mute yourself? Okay. Now, so when banking sector is looking at blockchain, they are looking at ability to ensure data has not been tampered with. Communications and media. Let's take Facebook. The worst situation today is fake news. And we don't know the, where the post is created and how it navigated across. Now imagine with blockchain implementation, you can track and trace the information state changes also. Sometimes just take the recent example of JNU University video. Okay. The video was tampered. The video was cut such a way that it is showing only half part of the story. And it is not showing the full part of the story. And today we are relying on trusted third parties. Who are they? Media houses, TVs. I mean the media channels. But do you trust media channels? Each channel supports each political party. So, of course, ability to ensure data has not been tampered with is also one of the first priority for communications and media industry. And let's take consumer goods and services. Because it involves a lot of stakeholders in its supply chain, distributed nature of the technology blockchain has become one of the first priority for them. And let's take energy footprint, energy sector. See, today, one of the biggest reason for less adoption of solar power is people don't have a way to sell their excess solar power. Okay, they need to wait till they use it in next month or other month. Okay, now with blockchain, tokenization can be created and all excess energy can be tokenized, and you can do trading. Okay, and such kind of traceability of how many units were excessively created and who is the nearest house to whom this is traded, and those tokens can be monetized back. So energy sector can look at the traceability of information on blockchain as its first priority. Let's take healthcare. If you take healthcare, I'll just give this, this one example, and probably I'll just skip. So I'm just giving multiple examples because to give you a picture of each organization has its own priorities, its own intended benefits, and you need to look all these aspects as a spectrum. Okay, so all benefits of blockchain is not by default for each industry. Okay, blockchain has spectrum of benefits, and each industry need to choose what is that particular frequency, what is that particular benefit to which the industry specifically fits in. So let's take electronic medical records. Electronic medical records involves multiple stakeholders. Who are they? Hospitals, the diagnosis labs, insurance players, and you. Now you have a electronic health record, then you change it to other hospital and you will have other electronic medical record. Okay, and each hospital gives their own unique health ID. Okay, and today there is no centralized health ID probably in India, and they are mapping it to Aadhaar again. So I mean, see, and your health records are stored across, and who knows, like someone is claiming a fraudulent claim on your health record. No one knows it. There are many cases like this, especially government based benefits. There are many cases where like poor people, they don't know, and their identity is thefted. I mean, identity theft happens, and the tampering, I mean the what to say, the tampering of health record happens, or privacy of health record is lost. Okay, so all these things can be solved with blockchain by giving power of the control of data to the end user again. So it is not like mailing or giving a physical copy of the health record, but on blockchain, you can create a data wallet for your health data, and that data wallet access can be given to multiple stakeholders, and you can track who opened and who accessed the data also. So such kind of systems is possible. And why should they choose blockchain only? Why don't they choose centralized players? Because see, all the IT systems today are organization centric. They are not ecosystem centric. So when multiple organizations are involved, of course, they should rely on blockchain. Otherwise, they will not be able to mitigate. They should wait for some government to create a huge centralized platform, huge reform. It will take decades, and we never know when it materializes. So blockchain is a shortcut for governments to facilitate these kinds of decentralized platforms for multiple stakeholders, so that government can't do everything, right? So government can become a regulator and can become a facilitator with blockchain. So I think let's get into the usability. So I think I just gave you the benefits and the features, and I mapped the features to benefits. And now, because you understood benefits and the typical features, now you are in a position to actually evaluate usability of a blockchain. Okay. So I think I have another 6 slides and I'll finish them off. So now you have enough understanding of the benefits and also you will be able to easily correlate them here. Whenever you are deciding usability of blockchain, the first question you need to ask is, do you need to store state? And when I say state, it's not like Telangana, Andhra Pradesh or something. I'm talking about data state. If a good is moving from manufacturer to a distributor, that means the data attribute of ownership is getting changed. And that ownership transfer or ownership change should be stored. So wherever there is a need for data change, state change to be captured, that is only when blockchain should be considered. If you don't need to store state change, then don't use blockchain. Imagine you uploaded an image on Instagram. Okay, you uploaded an image on Instagram, and by mistake you applied other filter rather than one filter. It went to other filter. So you just removed that and you applied the filter which you intended and you posted it back. Do you need to store state change there? I don't think so. So it is very trivial to store that state change for an image. Okay. So you need to see when you are going to use blockchain, the first question you need to ask is that data has some value? And should we store that change of data to avoid some organization or some player to get vested interest of out of it by manipulating it? Then that is a value. I mean, that is a data of value. And do you need to store state? Yes. If the answer is yes, then you need to go to the next question. Are there multiple writers? So here, I mean, it becomes very tricky. I can't generalize much, but I'll try to explain in a very easy way. Are there multiple writers? If the answer is yes, then proceed. Otherwise, no. Because if it is a data which you have control and which has only benefit for you, like your Google Drive, okay, you have file and you shared it with some of your friends, multiple friends, okay, and anyone can edit. So you can give edit change and view change. I mean, view access and edit access. Now, when multiple friends came together and they edited it, of course, all the players is getting the same data at the end of the day, but they don't have the state changes captured. Okay. But if you take GitHub is one platform like version control. You can do version control, like any changes you did to the code can be captured. So similarly, when a data is getting modified by multiple writers as a business functionality, then use blockchain. Okay, because you'll be able to capture a state change at every step as an individual transaction. So even every data change also is called as a transaction in blockchain, because I mean, it is a terminology which derived, because blockchain is a distributed ledger. Every state change is one state moved to other state. So it is a transaction between two states of data. So that is how it is called as a transaction, or it is called as a record. So people use it as they want. Next comes, yes, there are multiple writers. Now, can you use an always online TTP? Trusted third party. So here I give another example. Let's take Airtel, TRAI, and me. I am a citizen of India, and Airtel is one service provider, and TRAI is the regulatory authority who controls all the mobile phone service providers. Okay, now TRAI said that only 5 SIMs can be given to a citizen. Okay, second, Aadhaar. So even Aadhaar authority, I mean, there is Aadhaar, of course. Now, if I were to go and buy a SIM card and I said, hey, I'm Aravind, I want to buy a Airtel SIM, and you can trust me, I have only 2 SIMs other than the new one which I'm going to buy. Can you give a SIM? So will they trust? So Airtel and me should have some trusted third party. Okay, who is that trusted third party? Aadhaar. And Aadhaar is something which enables Airtel to believe me that I am Aravind. Okay, so it will ask for my fingerprint, and I'll be getting a OTP. I'll be sharing the OTP, and it will check whether any SIMs are already issued, okay, from the TRAI data. So there is some intermediary body which stores all this data. Okay, so now see, you are depending on multiple intermediaries. So if you can have an online trusted third party 24 hours to enable trust between you, if the answer is yes, don't use blockchain. Why? You have a strong trusted third party. Okay. In that cases, probably using blockchain will not make much sense. But if you don't have a trusted third party all the time, if the answer is no to that question, then you need to further ask, are all writers known to each other? So imagine all these writers are not known to each other. Then you need to use permissionless blockchain, like public blockchain. And one best example is Bitcoin network. On Bitcoin, see, if I'm doing a bank transfer, how will I do it? I open a bank account, you open a bank account. I will submit my KYC, you will submit your KYC. And when I initiate a transfer to you, the banks will check check my account balance, and it will transfer the amount from my account to your account. Now let's take Bitcoin network. What is a Bitcoin network? Bitcoin network is like all the nodes are maintained by general public, and each node has a logic, a script, which tells them how to verify and validate a transaction, how to check the account balance, how to check that yes, he's the person who is actually owning the coins. Okay, so all this banking logic is converted into a script, and that script is in all the nodes in the network. And imagine when I open when I create a wallet on Bitcoin, I get a private key and public key, and I will be able to transfer money to the other person. And who is validating that? All the nodes in the network will validate it. And without revealing my identity, I can buy, I can sell, I can pay. Imagine I went to a nearby store. Okay. And I am getting a good, a packet of biscuit or something. Okay. Or something is pizza. Even a Bitcoin first transaction with real world is pizza. Someone bought pizza with Bitcoin. So I need not know them. I'll scan a QR from my wallet and money gets transferred. So if all writers are not known to each other, they can use permissionless blockchain. Now let's take supply chain. Supply chain also involves multiple stakeholders, but are all writers known? Yes. Known in the sense, a manufacturer knows the distributor, all distributors who are involved, who have agreement with him, with whom only they will be doing business. And then distributor also has some retailers who can be identified and with whom there is an agreement in between, and they'll be doing it. So if all writers are known, then you need to go with this approach. Are all writers trusted? If the answer is yes, don't use blockchain. There are very limited stakeholders in the supply chain, and if it is so robust, then don't use blockchain. Okay. But if the answer is no, like you'll be doing business with multiple stakeholders across the globe, and I'm not sure how trustworthy they are, then use blockchain. Then again, in that scenario where all trusters are known, all writers are known to each other, but still there are two possibilities. One is public permissioned blockchain and other is private permissioned blockchain. Let me give you a simple example here. Another example. Organic food. Now, just because I have a organic sticker, organic, it is written as organic, 100% organic and green dot in between, and it is put on the package, and I'm buying it. That's it. I'm trusting the brand here actually. But how confident can I be on the brand? How can I be sure? So now food supply chain, the organic food supply chain can use blockchain here, and it can use public permissioned blockchain. I'll explain you in elaborate. There is an organic form which has its own latitude, longitude. And when that particular form product gets onboarded onto a logistics van, okay, a transaction can be facilitated on blockchain with timestamp and with latitude and longitude. And then the logistics like moves here, okay, and then it reaches a food processing unit, and the food processing unit has its own latitude, longitude, and it has its own packaging like QR, of course, a QR code, and then it can attach the QR code, and while outwarding it for distribution, it can scan and it can capture that transaction on blockchain. So here the logistics player will maintain a node. The form need not maintain a node, but it will, I mean, while the form is while the product is moving, the product will be getting into a container, a pallet, and pallet can have a QR code, and the logistics player can scan that through an app, and the app will be communicated with the blockchain at the back end. So like this, logistics, distributor, retailer, while they inward and while they outward, they can scan the QR. And the QR and through the app will be mapped to the data on blockchain. And because any data on blockchain can't be tampered with anyone, a end consumer can quickly open his smartphone and scan the QR, and he will be able to verify the provenance. And he can check the transaction IDs on Blockchain Explorer also. Every blockchain will have a Blockchain Explorer. And on that Blockchain Explorer, that particular QR is mapped to all transactions which happen. And by using those transaction IDs, you can go and check on Explorer also. So that way, a genuine organic player can differentiate themselves compared to all other players. And why it is called as public permissioned blockchain? Because the data on that of that particular product moving from end to end is public. And of course, he can't see the data of all other products, only the QR which is scanned, only he will be able to see that. Okay, it's not like all the data is public, but some part of the data is public. And why permissioned blockchain? Only the stakeholders involved in that particular supply chain will maintain a node. Okay, no other, some other stakeholder in other supply chain, why will he maintain node here? So it should be a permissioned blockchain, but of course it is public. Now let's take the Ripple example which I gave, the 40 international banks coming together to use a blockchain. So a bank that such kind of network is like private permissioned blockchain. Only those 40 banks and employees of those 40 banks will be able to see the data and will be able to validate or audit the transactions. General public can't see a transaction. Okay, they can open their account statement, of course. Okay, but still all data is not usually public. But if you take the example in food supply chain I gave, the QR code can be scanned by any public person and he can get the details. But here in banking example, it is private in nature. The data is private in nature. And the network is permissioned in nature. Why? Only 40 banks came together to form. And if there is some other bank who wants to join, of course, they need to get the permission from the consortium. Okay, that particular blockchain consortium, and then they can join. So all you need to understand here is blockchain usability happens in a step-by-step approach, understanding what is that particular data state change which should be captured and who are the stakeholders involved in that particular state change and who can view the data. So these are the three fundamental aspects in which you need to evaluate blockchain. And that is how you will be able to figure out which blockchain to use. And of course, not everyone can have that such a technical depth, and that is where probably you can take service from blockchain companies. Okay. And one of the, I mean, blockchain as a service companies, probably you can reach out to Zorium also. We can help you evaluate your business scenario for blockchain. Okay. Or you can approach any blockchain companies in the world and they will be able to help you out on evaluating the usability of blockchain. So now to categorize and to define the three classical categories, I think I explained them already. What are they? Permissioned private shared system, permissioned public shared system, permissionless public shared system. So if you take Bitcoin, Ethereum, so they are like permissionless public. Okay, they are on extreme end of decentralization. And if you take databases, databases are only by that particular organization. It is limited to that particular organization only. So it is centralized. So on one extreme, you have centralization, and other extreme, you have decentralization. And of course, in between, you have best of two worlds. But remember this one thing. You can't implement blockchain as a single organization. Okay. For your single organizational purposes, there are already ERP systems. There are already access controls, admin controls. Okay. All those things are well defined. Within an organization, blockchain is not of much use. Blockchain is useful only when multiple organizations can come together and have a distributed ledger. So, but if the organizations want to restrict themselves to only few stakeholders, then they will go for permissioned private or permissioned public based on the data. And anyone can join the blockchain network and anyone can participate in the consensus mechanism. This is when incentivization mechanism, mining, cryptocurrency or tokens, so all that concepts comes under permissionless public blockchain. Okay. So as decentralization increases, you will be moving from permissioned private to permissionless public blockchains. Okay, I hope I'm clear with this slide. And even if you have some questions, you can put in chat. At the end, I will answer them. Okay, next. Here comes the 9-step approach. Okay. Yeah, now let's look at this. Imagine you want to implement blockchain in your ecosystem or among your stakeholders. Then you need to follow this 9-step approach for blockchain evaluation and strategy. And I explored, we at Zorium, like we explored a lot of research reports. We talked to lots of blockchain business leaders, and based on our conversations and based on our internal research, we figured out these are the 9 steps which are very important for blockchain evaluation and strategy. And when you're coming up with a strategy for blockchain adoption, you need to evaluate, and these two things go hand by hand. And out of these 9 steps, 5 are domain specific, 4 are technology specific. The first 5 are domain specific. By domain, I mean business. I mean that particular field of business. So these 5, the first 5 are domain specific. So now imagine you decided to use blockchain for your business scenario. Then you need to first identify who are the stakeholders involved. Who are those peers or participants who involve in state or ownership change? What are those data and what are the interactions which happen among them? So you need to come up with the interaction map. Like you need to understand the interactions and touch points of all peers. So like, so this person raises PO to this, okay, this person gives a shipping bill, then there another acknowledgement comes, then invoice is sent, then financial. So lot of interactions happen between all stakeholders across. Then you need to come up with trust map. You need to look at, are you relying on some intermediaries or trusted third parties, or are you relying on some paperwork for trust? So you need to figure out what are those data points and what are those paperwork or intermediaries who is enabling trust at this point of time. And remember this one more thing. You can't put all data on blockchain. Why? Why do you put all data on blockchain? Blockchain is not replacement of centralized systems. Okay. Every organization should have their own ERP system, but blockchain is a layer on top of the ERP system. And there should be off-chain data, there should be on-chain data. So all stakeholders should come together and discuss and figure out what are those data points you want to put on blockchain and what all data points you will be putting off chain. That means individual systems. So for that to happen, the basic thing you need to do is problem solution fit. So once you figured out the trust map, the next step is problem solution fit. You need to figure out the scope of problems addressable. And let me highlight here one important point. Blockchain is a not magic wand to solve all the problems. It has its own limitations, or it has its own scope in which it can solve the problems. So problem solution fit happens when you figure out the scope of problems addressable with blockchain. And even I think for this point, a lot of domain experts and technology experts should discuss, interact, and figure out that. Then only problem solution fit will happen. And then comes consortium formation. So once you are done with defining stakeholders, interaction maps, trust map, and what are those problems and what are those data points which all stakeholders want to share, then consortium formation should happen. What is this consortium formation? It is a business agreement, again, a one-time business agreement between all stakeholders saying, hey, let's deploy a blockchain. Each one of us will maintain a node, and these are the participants from each organization who will participate. I mean, who will log in, that's it. I mean, who will be able to access the data, that's it. And who will be able to initiate transactions. And what are those inter-organizational processes which should be aligned for blockchain implementation. See, it is like all organizations should follow some standard process, right? So workflows should be defined, compliance should be defined, benefits and ROI also should be defined. Of course, just because you are a stakeholder, please maintain a node, will that work? No. The consortium should come together and discuss benefits for each stakeholder. And you should also discuss on what is the return on investment for me to, or what is the benefit for me to maintain this node. And don't worry, node is not like a supercomputer. Okay, node is a general server or general system also. And almost all organizations today have their own servers. And maintaining a blockchain node and maintaining a distributed ledger is not a out of world scenario. Okay, it is affordable, of course. And there are multiple blockchain platforms from Hyperledger, R3 Corda, Ethereum, Enterprise Ethereum Alliance, okay, and public Ethereum platform. So multiple blockchains have multiple price points, multiple features. So it is not like only large corporates can afford blockchain. Okay. Even small players can come together and they can deploy a DApp, a decentralized application on public blockchain, where you need not maintain infrastructure also. You can rely on public blockchains. And sometimes if you are big enough, you can deploy your own private blockchain and you can proceed further. So this is how the consortium formation happens to decide which platform should we go based on the nature of the business they are in. Then comes technology specific steps. And the technology steps is very different. Again, once the consortium is defined, once a consortium decided they want to go with private permissioned blockchain or public permissioned blockchain. So which technology stack should be used? So again, you need to discuss with your tech team in-house if they have blockchain capability, or you can take support of a company like ours, so that we help you to define the tech stack which is right for your business scenario. And then comes authorization and access control. So you can define the authorization and access controls based on consortium organizational structure. So manufacturer can define, hey, financial department, the finance head or accountant will be the person who will be initiating the transactions or auditing the transactions. Okay, they won't validate, they audit it or they initiate it. Validation will be taken care by blockchain itself through smart contracts. So, and what data should be visible for who, what stakeholders. So all those things can be defined in the chain code. So chain code or smart contract is same. So you need to codify all the business logic of interactions into chain code and participate in the consensus. Consensus is nothing but mutual agreement between all the participants beforehand, that hey, these are the logic, I mean these are the steps in which we should validate or verify the transaction and initiate, I mean put the transaction on the ledger. And of course the last step is shared data. So view of the shared data is can be viewable on Block Explorer. Okay, so if it is a permissioned private blockchain, only those stakeholders involved will be able to see the data in the Block Explorer. If it is a public permissioned or public permissionless, general public also will be able to see the data. I mean they can validate the transactions by entering the transaction ID. Okay. So another 5 minutes, blockchain in manufacturing, supply chain management, decentralized marketplace. I think now it becomes a cakewalk for you probably to get a broader view of how you can use it. So now imagine blockchain in manufacturing. Okay. Now blockchain in manufacturing, real-time procurement at best price through smart contracts. Okay, I discussed this example when I gave some explanation for some of the slides. Okay, so all best prices, everything can be defined, and smart contracts will be executing based on the terms and conditions. So it will identify the best price, it will identify the terms and conditions, it will check the regulatory documents. So all that things can be automated. Okay, so something like this. So there are multiple, say especially blockchain in manufacturing sector, these are the business functions which will be affected more with blockchain. Operations, see operational efficiency will like go to heights. Okay, because coordination with other stakeholders is the biggest thing. And if you take the CRM applications today, like the customer, the client management, not every stakeholder gets onboarded onto CRM, and it is again CRM, then data gets into ERP. Okay, probably then other department deals with, takes decisions. So all these things can be, can be converged for a easy access. And supply chain management, finance, logistics, IT. So if you take the functional areas, blockchain impact on operations is the highest, and blockchain impact on HR is the lowest. And let's take example, blockchain in manufacturing for real-time procurement. So buyers can automatically check for specific requirements like pricing, time of delivery, regulatory documents, etc., and execute smart contracts, which will generate PO and start the process automatically. So this is like product catalog, sales order, then purchase order, then the product is shipped, Okay, product received, it will be taken care by other smart contract. Then payment tracking also can happen. So multiple smart contracts can be written for multiple processes. Okay, it's not like blockchain is only for financial sector or financial departments. No, blockchain is also for logistics processes. Blockchain is also for IP, intellectual property. Also, you can use blockchain. Or only data integrity, academic certificates on blockchain. Just take that example. University issuing certificate to such student. Even that can be stored as a transaction on blockchain. You know, hash of that particular certificate is put on blockchain and no one can modify. And at the time of verification of certificate, the hash can be calculated in real time, and that can be cross-checked with hash stored on blockchain. If both are matching, then certificate is valid. Otherwise, it is not valid. So, I mean, it has extensive uses. Okay, you can write smart contract for any process. Like in past, how we have apps for every use case, like with Steve Jobs saying, there is an app for everything. Of course, there is a smart contract for every business process. Okay, the only thing is you need to figure out the logic and you need to quantify that. And supply chain. Now imagine every stakeholder, whatever documents or whatever data they enter, it will be getting on to record step by step. All data points will be going as a, onto the ledger, which is visible across. And of course, each smart contract can match supplier, order invoice, shipment quality check against specification, and then pay supplier. So all these processes can be defined in the smart contract, and automation can be facilitated. Then match supplier, order invoice, shipment quality check against specification, update inventory levels, pay supplier. Okay, if you're dealing with warehouse. And everyone has some inward and outward, right? So every time a product gets outwarded, they will scan. When a product is inwarded, they will scan. So transfer of ownership also can be captured onto blockchain. And a end consumer can scan a QR and get all the details which they decided to show to the consumer. Okay, but they can't show the manipulated data. Okay, because a consumer can quickly enter the transaction ID and can check on blockchain, right? So that is how trust is enabled in supply chain management. And there is other benefit also other than end consumer use. Imagine a manufacturer wants to recall some products. Let's take Maggie example. Okay, the classic example, because they have some ingredients which went beyond some composition. They had to recall all the batches of Maggie. Okay, otherwise, if they had this kind of track and trace till retailer level, then they would have selectively chosen few batches and they would have recalled. Okay, so recall of expiry products or recall of some damaged products or giving confidence to end consumer or managing inventory levels. So automatically, even a smart contract can be written to auto raise a PO if inventory level goes below some certain level. So even that can become a smart contract, and a smart contract can check which is the best time at which we can do it. Okay, which is the best price, who is the vendor with which we can do. So all those things can be facilitated. So I think I took a little more time, but I'm confident I didn't bore you. So now it's time for Q&A. And apart from this, before getting into Q&A, if you as an organization is interested for getting your business evaluated, so Zorium is planning free evaluation, free blockchain evaluation for a couple of organizations who enroll. So you can get onto this form, bit.ly/ZBEI form. Okay, you can quickly enter this. and probably you can enter your details and we'll catch up with you. So last time I see a lot of people got connected with me on LinkedIn and all. And apart from that, please connect on LinkedIn and Facebook of Zorium so that you can get real-time updates. Okay, so just go and search on with Zorium on LinkedIn and Facebook. Please like the pages and get and stay tuned. Okay. Yeah. So open for questions. Okay. Thanks, Ramesh. Thanks that I could share knowledge and it is informative.
Yeah, thank you, Arvind.
Yeah. So Prasad. So question is okay, blockchain in manufacturing. Are we allowing all suppliers to use blockchain for their quotations? See, actually there is no standard structure kind of thing. Okay, it is, see, now imagine there is a manufacturer and he has multiple suppliers. Okay, now with each supplier, based on the volumes or based on things which you source, you will get into some discounting. Okay, or probably some specific timelines. Okay, whatever process it is, all those business logic or terms and conditions or agreement terms can be converted into a smart contract. And whenever, imagine your inventory went below something or you want to do a new production. Okay, once that the details of that particular new production goes onto the system, then a smart contract can fetch all those data points as inputs and figure out a strategy or figure out which vendor to approach, when to approach. Okay, and raise automatic quotations or I mean, or raise a request for some particular orders. Okay, so I think blockchain in manufacturing is very broad subject, and as you said, the manufacturer and suppliers, they can come together and they can use blockchain for their all invoices, quotations. Okay, and even dynamic prices. Okay, dynamic pricing is one benefit which is possible with okay, blockchain. So something like this. So I have this volume, and if you have requirement in 15 days, this is the price. If you have requirement in 30 days, this is the price. Okay, so such kind of dynamic pricing is possible. Second thing, even manufacturer can define the payment terms also. Sometimes imagine if a invoice, so typically in supply chain what happens is 45 days is settlement time. Okay, sometimes 30 days is settlement time. Now few smart contracts can be written like, there is one supplier who has a working capital deficiency and he wants the invoice to be settled before 45 days. Okay, so in that case, a smart contract can be written saying, hey, 45 days is zero cut settlement. If you want 30 days, you need to give invoice discounting. Like I will take 5%. Okay, I will pay 5% less. If you want immediately in 10 days, I will take 8% or 12% based on their own individual agreement. Okay, so this kind of dynamism is possible with blockchain. I hope I gave you answer, Prasad. And coming to Syed, how can we apply in circular economy? Circular economy. Okay. See, let's take recycling. Okay, so one best scenario probably can be carbon footprint. Okay, now imagine today every time a product, okay, gets some processed or traveled or something, of course there is one carbon footprint which gets added. Okay, so in future with blockchain being mandated by government, every carbon footprint can be captured along with the, okay, what to say, along with the journey of the product. Okay, now there is a ownership. So now before throwing it or it reached to some X person, okay, now he want to recycle it, and based on the recycling things, of course, once he recycles it, then the credits, so there can be some tokenization concept there, and for recycling that product based on the carbon footprint, these are the rewards I will be giving you, and you can use those tokens for any purpose. Okay, so let's take a public circular economy of goods and recycling. Okay, it's also a circular economy. Okay, now if you take that scenario, government can come up with saying, hey, this is a eco token. Okay, and government can deploy a smart contract on public blockchain, and whenever someone brings these products or recycled products to particular location or to some mechanism is to be there. Okay, some work lines, but I'm just giving on a broad overview. Okay, and those tokens can be used electricity bill. Okay, why? Even electricity is under the government, right? So of course, so government sometimes can come up with a circular economy scenario by saying we'll tokenize recycled products. Okay, or we will tokenize, imagine you have a smartphone or smartwatch and you traveled, okay, from multiple, so you used your bike very much less, okay, and you traveled by walking here and there. Okay, now we will reward you with some tokens because you saved some carbon footprint. Okay, so it can come up with a smart contract saying your mobile should be enrolled, and you walking beyond half kilometer to 1 kilometer, you will get some tokens, and 1 kilometer to 2 kilometers you'll get some token. And of course the tech mechanisms, like whether he is walking or whether he is moving fast, so all these things can be created. So now those tokens can be used, or the number of tokens you earned can be showed to a insurance player, and you can get some premium benefit when you take a health insurance. And because all this tokenization and all this data is not on a centralized server but on a decentralized system, you can create a circular economy. Okay, so I mean, take anything, tokenization is one feature of blockchain which enables circular economy. Okay, and you can keep track. It's not like giving a money, okay, giving money to the account. Now he might use for anything, but because of tokenization, the number of tokens issued are always kept tracked. Okay, and now when you are buying or when you are selling, so the ownership also is tracked on the blockchain. So everything becomes transparent and everything becomes accountable. So did I answer your question, Syed? Yeah. Okay, thank you. Thank you. Yeah, any further questions? Okay, Renu, are you there?
Yes.
Yeah. Renu, I think you can share the WhatsApp group link here. Okay. So guys, actually we created a WhatsApp group so that whenever we are doing some kind of webinars, and soon we are planning multiple other things also. We are coming up with, so in coming sessions, you can expect more webinars with respect to individual domains also, like blockchain in supply chain in specific, blockchain in what to say, in document integrity, blockchain in cyber security. So we will be coming up with multiple webinars, and if you join the WhatsApp group, you will get the updates. So checking a mail or you checking a Facebook page and registering, so probably you might miss. So in the interest of the participants, so we are building a kind of community, and we have a WhatsApp group, and you can get assured that other than updates on the webinars, you won't get any messages. Okay, so we won't spam you with other messages. Okay, so Renu will share the link soon in chat. Okay, in chat link, you can click on that, or probably you can join through the link. Okay, thanks Prasad. It's my pleasure to have you for the webinar. So, I mean, thanks for joining us. And we at Zorium always believe in creating value, creating impact. And uh, even I should thank Zorium also for giving this opportunity. Okay, indeed an interesting one. Hats off. Okay, thanks Ayat. Thank you so much. Okay, so there is one yeah, WhatsApp chat. So could you see the chat link? So you can copy this and you can join the group, WhatsApp group, so that you'll be updated. Okay, thank you. And so thanks thank you everyone, and thanks Zorium for this opportunity. And let's get connected with another interesting webinar in a week or so. Okay, week or 10 days, I'll be giving another webinar. Okay, and the topic for the next presentation, suspense. Stay tuned. Okay, bye Avinash. Thank you so much. I'm leaving. I'm assuming that there are no more questions, so let's catch up. Bye. Good day. Good evening.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.